right, guys, what's going on? So we're back without our fourth person that was joining us on the last episode. He had a emergency come up that he had to attend to, but we are back. We are here to discuss Marvel, or more specifically, the MCU's best and worst villains. With that being said, guys, I think some of you guys might have misunderstood me when I reached out to you earlier in the week to come up with, I did say the phrase "make a list," but I didn't specifically mean to make a countdown from 10 to 1, anything like that. But there might have been some miscommunication there. But I will say, I guess if I started off, one that I would have to bring up from the MCU as the most forgettable would definitely be Malachi. I think that it's not even so that he is just a terrible actor or the performance was bad or whatever. It wasn't even that, or the character of Malachi himself. It was just the way that he was used in that film. It made that character become very forgettable. What do you guys think?
He had such potential in the comics. He's cool. He's so cool. He's tough. He's got the casket of winters, and he's just taking people down in all the realms. And then he showed up on the big screen, and it was like a whole new character. It was such a pale comparison. His motivation, even his look, how the dark elves looked. It could have been so good, and it was so bad.
Yeah, I agree. He's actually in my list simply because, when you expect a big bad or a villain to be in a movie, you don't expect them to share that role with the people that they're kind of supposed to be controlling, or their subjects or whatever. And I felt like he just kind of so many times in many different scenes kind of took a back seat to his own schemes. It had so much potential. I agree that it was, that film could have been absolutely phenomenal. And it just fell flat. It was very monotone for me.
It was. And I think that he was definitely at the center of Malachi for sure. What do you guys when you think of villains that stand out in a good way in the MCU? What villains come to mind?
One of my favorites is Zemo from Civil War, simply because he was just, even now, if you've watched Falcon and Winter Soldier, he's just malicious. And his agenda and everything, he will do stop at nothing to do get his agenda across. And he just really caused so much anarchy within that one movie. And I think for such a character as he is, that has no superhuman ability or anything, it's just manipulation. Just the fact of pure human evil nature that he had, it was just he's one of my favorites. He killed it for me.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Zemo, because when that movie first came out, I wasn't a huge fan of Zemo. And even some of his plans in the film were they took a lot of liberties, but of course they do that in a lot of films, right? But when he was fleshed out more in Falcon and Winter Soldier, I really liked that villain. He was just elevated to me so much more than he had been, And yeah, like you said, in Civil War, a powerless individual that's basically just a normal dude with maybe a lot of connections, a lot of resources, was able to tear apart the Avengers. That's that wound is still present even in Infinity War, even, in Endgame. That wound is still there, the wound that he left. So yeah, as far as the one who accomplished the most, you could definitely give that award to Zemo. What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I liked Zemo. I liked him the first few episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then I feel like he kind of dropped off. I think a lot more could have been done with him. Put the Flag Smashers over here, and let's focus on Zemo, because he's the Loki of that series. Let's see what else is going on. So I hated that he was taken off the table like that. And you asked what villain kind of stands out. I feel like there's Loki, and then there's everyone else, honestly. Really? He's been in every movie. So he's been fleshed, and then got his own show. So he's fleshed out more than every Marvel villain combined. There's nobody even close. But I mean, they write books on Loki and dissertations, and I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is his MCU sister, Hela. Hela was just psycho good, and I want another movie with her as a villain. Just when even her first appearance, she shows up, she takes Mjolnir, destroys it, sends them, knocks them off into all over the place, shows up on Asgard, kills the Warrior Three, takes over, becomes queen, takes down everybody. She's just like, wow, she's so cool, so tough. And then she does this. When you do that, and then you pull out blades from your arms, can you get any cooler? I just don't think you can. So that's how I go to work. I go to work and I'm like, but nothing happens. And they're just like, Jared, please stop posing like that. It's weird. But Hela is great. And I really hope we get to see her come back in some form, even if it's a prequel. If they do decide to do something about when Odin trapped her, that's fine. But overall, Marvel is very much about having one-off villains, and I think that's it's just a huge flaw of the MCU as a whole.
Yes,
just a one and done villain, and Hela just deserves something like Baron Zemo.
like what you're talking about. I would have liked to have gotten more from Red Skull in the MCU. Hugo Weaving, phenomenal actor. Both those characters you guys were talking about. Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, phenomenal actor. Also, Kate Blanchett. Yeah, Kate Blanchett, phenomenal actress. So when you look at Hugo Weaving for Red Skull, he didn't even come back for Infinity War. I think that was somebody else playing the role. It was Ross Marquand. Yeah. He's like an impressionist, I guess, or he's good at doing a Hugo Weaving impression. I think he also played the voice of Ultron in What If. But when you have those strong actors and actresses playing those characters, I mean, of course you're going to want to see more. That's the thing. Like, to me, that's one of the big tragedies of the MCU. Even Killmonger, man, like, talk about phenomenal actors. Michael B. Jordan, come on, man. That's a freaking Academy Award-winning actor. And his performances in Creed, oh my gosh, I love those films. I think they're already doing a part 3 to those. I don't know if you guys have ever seen part 1 and 2 of Creed, but I'm a huge Rocky fan, and how they transitioned from Rocky to Apollo Creed's son in those films, and he just does such a great job. It's almost like, I can see him stepping in those shoes, because Sylvester Stallone, whether people want to give him credit or not, was a great actor, a very good dramatic actor, and he has a lot of potential that he didn't always use, but when he did use it, so I think that Michael B. Jordan fills those shoes very well. But I'm starting to digress a bit here. Yes, Hugo Weaving, great tragedy that we didn't get to see him come back as Red Skull. Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger, like you guys said, Zemo, Kate Blanchett, Hela, good stuff. Really good stuff. I'll talk about another one. Have you guys ever thought about including Vulture in that list, played by Michael Keaton?
Yeah, I thought about him as I wasn't putting a list together because you just but it's actually written.
Did anybody put a list together? Did anybody actually go through the hard work and dedication to do something?
But anyways, like, as I was going through and just kind of reflecting on how these characters and the impact they had, I think it was Michael Keaton's character was really well done. It's cool to see these characters that are just they're just, I hate to say ancient characters or ancient actors or whatever, but they're just like, they haven't done, I guess, something that would be more relevant to today. They haven't done any big movies or anything in a long time. And when they come back and they do something like being a character as Vulture, I think he did a great job. I think as far as like being a villain and having a lot of malicious nature about him, I think he did very, very well.
That one scene where he's in the car with Peter, and Peter just looks, he did a great job playing that, by the way, too, Tom Holland, of just making, you could just see it. He was just pale and just nervous, probably the same way we all felt, going to our first prom, right? But he was just, in his seat like that. And then the way Vulture like looks back and puts his arm on the armrest, he's like,
good old Spider-Man.
and you see the green light on his face, just the little subtle things like that. Man, that's just good stuff. Great.
I think I even got anxious when that scene.
I was too. I was nervous.
Oh, I'm nervous.
My palms were sweaty for sure.
Yeah.
I'd have to throw Justin Hammer on this list. He's from Iron Man 2. That movie for me was very low, probably bottom 7 or 8 movies in the MCU. But I feel like he was the shining star of that movie. His attitude, whoever that guy was, I forget his name. I know he's a big name, but he just played the heck out of that movie, that role. He played it so well. And then we never heard a thing. Never heard another thing. We've heard about Hammer we heard about those in the Freeform shows like Cloak and Dagger. They talked about that in Runaways. There's been a couple MCU stuff where
he was in that post-credit sequence with Trevor Slattery.
There you go. Yeah. Some super, but never Justin. Like, come on, bring him back. And I know they're getting ready to do Armor Wars on Disney Plus. So I'm hoping that he plays a role. Because like Hela, I just feel like he was such a big presence. He almost was bigger than the rest of the movie. Hela was bigger than, Thor and Hulk running around being silly in a bright costume, whatever. We just got to get Justin back, He was so great.
He was very good in that role for sure. I forget that.
Yeah, I literally just watched that film yesterday because I was trying to figure out who all my worst were. And I knew Whiplash was like on my bottom of the bottom, and I couldn't remember why. And I went back and watched, and now I'm in total agreement that Justin Hammer is due like some due diligence to kind of resurface, whether it be in Armor Wars or something of the like, just because it's like Iron Man, I guess you will, like someone who's trying to be the same or equivalent that never seems to measure up. So they have to relent to being a villain or whatever. But on the other side of that coin, Whiplash had such a potential, and Anton Vanko, which is where the character was derived from, it ends up being Ivan, his son. And then I don't know if it was so much just the storytelling or Mickey Rourke's acting that really destroyed the character for me. Because, at this point, when Mickey Rourke shows up, we had just got like really beat up with the Expendables series. And so like you got all these older actors that are resurfacing and doing these films. And then next thing you know, you've got Mickey Rourke supposed to be a bad villain. I just did not like it. I just did not enjoy it whatsoever. I enjoyed Justin Hammer, but I just did not enjoy Whiplash as far as like it had so much potential, man.
I don't think that was Mickey Rourke's fault. Mickey Rourke is a great actor, but he can also be a bit of a diva behind the scenes, I think, as well. So maybe that played a part of it as well. I don't know if there was a disconnect between him and Favreau, or if it was just the sheer amount of stuff that Disney and Marvel were giving Favreau to cram into this movie. Is probably a combination of everything, that, okay, hey, Jon Favreau, don't forget, we also got to have that cameo in there of Nick Fury's got to pop up. Black Widow needs to be a pivotal part of the film, and we need to start laying the groundwork for the Avengers film, so there's a lot of stuff that he kind of had to balance there. And it was probably a combination of all those things together. Mickey Rourke's a great actor when he wants to be, So I don't really think that it's his fault, but then again, maybe it is because there's been a lot of rumblings about behind the scenes drama between him and the director as well. So I don't know. It could be a cornucopia of all those things.
Oh, did you just say cornucopia?
I did.
Before Thanksgiving too. Good one.
Nope. When I think of bad villains in the MCU, sadly, it's easier to think of that list. When you look at Iron Man 1, Jeff Bridges, that felt cheesy to me. I wasn't a huge fan of that. It's really not his fault. He's a good actor too, but Marvel tends to do that a lot, and it gets boring. The whole mirror villain thing in every film. Ant-Man has Yellow Jacket. Even though Yellow Jacket, in the comics that's slightly different, whatever, but they just turn it into even kind of Killmonger. They almost tried to make Killmonger a mirror spitting image of Black Panther. You know, it's a lot of their fault, in my opinion, because they have these unique characters from the comics. You know, even Whiplash, they tried to make him very similar to Tony Stark's suit, and you know, with whips that he twirls around, you know, like a jump rope. But I think they need to get away from that more. That's why initially, before Iron Man 3 came out, I was really hyped about the Mandarin, even though now we all know that was, you know, Trevor Slattery, because that was going to be a completely different power set, completely different type of person that's going to be fighting against Tony. But in the end, we got, the one that said, "I am the Mandarin," and he had the tattoo on his chest. And
Aldrich Killian.
Aldrich Killian. Yep. Yeah. I mean, they tend to do that a lot, and it gets old. You know, it's the same thing over and over again with these origin movies. Even in Doctor Strange, you know, you have the rival sorcerer, right? You know, it's basically the same set of powers.
The common denominator is like you've got really either good or decent actors playing these parts. They're just under delivering on, I guess, the origin of the character. On the same type of topic, you know, one that I expected a lot more from, but it was very much under delivered for me, was Taskmaster. I wanted that to be so much more than it was, and it was like such a letdown that it ended up being what it is. Like that's just, I feel like that's bad storytelling. You changed an unnecessary detail. Like, I love the first Doctor Strange. I think it was a great movie. I think it gave a light into different cosmic realities, but at the same time, you have such a big, huge character like Dormammu, and you only give him like this small moment of screen time. You give Caecilius the majority of the film, and then you give Dormammu this small little section, and it's, you just get him stuck in a time loop and then make him surrender. And then now we don't hear from him again. And like, it's no longer mentioned. And so I think it's just a consistent under delivery. I'm thankful that the ones that they've done well, that they've knocked out of the park, that way it doesn't become stale, because there can be a consistent under delivery of origins of villains for sure.
Maybe, and we need to be patient with that Doctor Strange trilogy if we ever get a full trilogy, because don't forget, we're only on the first Doctor Strange film. There's always that possibility that Dormammu could pop back up in the sequel or the third movie as well, if we get the trilogy. And also don't forget about what's the Mordo. Mordo could possibly come back as well.
I would go with the Skrulls as being pretty disappointing for me. And hopefully there will be a redemption arc in Secret Invasion. But for them to basically be a villain throughout the whole Captain Marvel movie, which was like the only thing that made it bearable to watch, was I love the Skrulls. And then at the end, it's a bait and switch, and they're really all the good people that are just on the run from the Kree. No, they're not. They're just as savage, and they will turn into your mom and shoot you in the face. And to just not have that, and I was super disappointed with the Skrulls.
Taskmaster. So I want to know more about this character from the comics. Apparently he's very talkative in the comic universe, right? Obviously, I know it's not a female character in the comics, but I felt like that character, from what I've heard from a lot of purists, got the Deadpool treatment from X-Men Origins, Wolverine Origins. And, where they basically sewed his mouth shut and put a mask over him or whatever. Same thing with Taskmaster. Am I right or am I wrong about that?
No, you're right. Yeah, he's a former SHIELD agent that has photographic memory, and he would watch different videos of superheroes, or he would fight them and be able to mimic their moves immediately. He was so good at what he does is he would open up schools for new supervillains, and he would teach them how to do all these moves and how to fight like Spider-Man and Captain America and stuff. And then he'd send them on their way to go do more stuff. So then to have this be a daughter in a suit that doesn't talk with glasses that tell her how to fight, totally nerfed. That is don't call it, have that be a character, that's great, but don't call it Taskmaster. Call it Task Mattress or Mistress, or I don't know, just not Taskmaster,
Taskmaster is not, like, his role in the comic is not a supporting role. He's more of a lead in the front, and kind of, I am moving the pieces along and you're following. Whereas in this, it's just like some robotic I'm giving you instructions based off of you've been mentally rewired, and you're getting instruction based off of the manipulation and all the training and all of that you went through. And it's just like, again, I feel like it's an unnecessary change to a character that's absolutely phenomenal.
I think the movie Captain America: The Winter Soldier had the best villains of the MCU. We had the Winter Soldier, we had Alexander Pierce, and we had Hydra. Like, those three were just wild. Do you remember that first scene when we see Winter Soldier, you know? And Zola. Yeah. See? I mean, like, that movie just had the best villains I'd put up against anybody else. You know, Winter Soldier shows up and it's just misty and hazy, and you see him walking slowly towards the car, Nick Fury, and you're like, what? And it just, you know, is it Bucky? Is it not Bucky? We know, but the characters don't know. Alexander Pierce, it's a shame we're not going to see him again, but he played the heck out of that role. He didn't even have a ton of lines, but he seemed like, yeah, this guy, this conniving guy has been acting like a banker, basically, nice and just running the show or whatever. And he's infiltrated all of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you believe it. And then you have all the Hydra agents, and you got Crossbones in there, and you don't know who's who, and they're fighting, shooting at each other, and just, wow. So those three right there, I guess I forgot Zola. He was good. He was great, but he was no Winter Soldier or Hydra or Alexander Pierce. Those three were just a lethal combination, and I think they did great.
All around great film, by the way. Wonderful film.
Even outside of Marvel, you could just watch that movie and be like, this is a great movie.
Yep. It's like a political thriller, like a 70s spy thriller movie. It's top-notch stuff. If we're going to talk about more modern villains, we could talk about the Mandarin, you know, the new, or the Mandarin that we got in Shang-Chi. Did you guys both watch that film, by the way?
I haven't yet.
Okay, you haven't watched it yet, so we can't talk about it.
I know. I'm so behind. I haven't watched that. I haven't watched Venom, and I'm over here like frantically waiting on so much to happen. And we're about to get Eternals, and I got to get to the movies, man.
Yep. Shang-Chi's a good one. Shang-Chi's a good one. Honestly, Jared's going to laugh in my face for this, but I personally think that the best superhero film of this year is The Suicide Squad so far. It's better. To me, it was slightly better than Shang-Chi.
Is there a way to
better than Venom 2. What is it?
I'm with Casey.
I said, is there a way to remove the host?
Hey, I mean, come on. It was definitely better than Venom to me.
Well, I haven't seen it, so I can't compare it, but I can tell you I was going into it and having James Gunn at the helm. I had so much expectation. He's done so well with comic book movies for me so far. And so, like, he set the bar so high for himself. The content that he's given, or whatever, the script that he's given, and the amount that he's got to write or whatever, like, I think I was just more let down with the content itself. It had great parts in it, but I don't know, man. I didn't enjoy it as much. I enjoyed it more than the first one.
It's not. The Suicide Squad is not as good as Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And it's probably not even as good as Guardians of the Galaxy 2. But I'm just saying, I gave it a 7.5. But I think that movie barely edges out Shang-Chi. Definitely beats Venom 2. What else have we had this year? Has it only been? Oh, and Black Widow. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of Black Widow either. So, yeah, to me, it's better than all three of those films.
Are you on crack?
Actively.
No.
Well, so I got on this show thinking we were talking about Marvel villains. I already did a show on this, how terrible Suicide Squad 2 was with you. I feel like I'm having PTSD.
We're starting to get off the rails here a bit.
There is, you know, Abomination, and there's Thanos, and there's the Black Order, and Agatha Harkness, and the Ultron, and there's so many wild villains that kind of go the spectrum, you know, like Thanos, a lot of depth, really, really good.
Thanos.
Ultron, wasted.
Oh. I didn't like Ultron though, honestly. I thought that Ultron came across a little cheesy. I like the guy that played his voice, James Spader, but I think that Ultron for me came across a little too jokey. But Thanos,
Yes.
oh, Thanos is probably honestly the best. I can't believe we haven't talked about him yet, but Josh Brolin.
It's probably because we figured Thanos was just kind of a given. It's just, I mean, he is the Infinity Saga, if you will. I mean, it's his whole agenda is behind all of it.
And that, man, both those films, Infinity War and Endgame, were just so phenomenal. And the way technology has come forward these days with capturing his performance in the you got the dots all over his face, capturing that facial performance, he did a phenomenal job. I mean, just his look and his emotions, like probably the best by far.
Yeah, and I'm with you for Ultron. Ultron had so much potential in the comic books. You take him out and you think he's gone and he shows back up, and you take him out and he comes back and he's merged with Hank Pym, or like there's so many different iterations. And they just, again, they took him out after one movie, this big bad of the Avengers. And I think, so I didn't like him jokey either, but because he was a personality from Tony Stark, it made sense to me. I just didn't like it. I mean, I don't like it at all, but the way that the Marvel movie did it was, basically this is a computer program that Tony wrote. It's not going to not be sarcastic, and so he was what he was. I didn't like how he looked. I didn't like how he talked. The one time when he broke off his face and he looked like the comic Ultron, like, yes, keep that. And then he went back to his ugly look. I like the what if Ultron. I thought he's great.
Yes.
Yes.
Bring him.
Yeah.
He was not playing around, man. That was the true potential of Ultron. Literally, like possibly on the verge of shattering the entire multiverse. That's the Ultron we know from the comics. I've read some stories, books and titles with Ultron in it, and he ain't nothing to play with.
Sure.
But
No, it was he was very intense, and I love the way that they allowed his character. Once he started off on the track of screwing things up, it escalated very quickly.
very.
And it was like they didn't have to screw the storytelling. We're just gonna jack stuff up, and just punching the Watcher through each reality. And then next thing you know, he eats an entire galaxy. Phenomenal. I turned for one moment when the Watcher all of a sudden steps back and then gets into his armor, and you see all these powers going forth. I had a flashback of my childhood watching Dragon Ball Z, because it was just like these two guys are just hashing it out, and it was just, man, Ultron and What if he's in live action, we're in trouble.
Yeah, big time. Guys, we're starting to run out of time. Thank you so much for joining me today, taking time out of your day. Folks watching at home, thank you so much for joining us and watching us discuss some of our favorite and least favorite MCU villains. It's been a blast. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at Real Comic Book Cinema. You can also look us up on Facebook. Please like, share, and subscribe. Jared, would you like to plug anything?
Yeah. Check out the M6P. We're on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, all the places. Love to have you. We're all things Marvel all the time. None of the Suicide Squad stuff. So don't have to worry about that. We're a safe space for you. So come on over. Check us out. The THE M6P. Check us out.
It's good stuff. I follow you guys on not Instagram, but Facebook, and been a follower for a while. And I've actually been on the show a couple times too. So
Yes,
good
sir.
stuff.
Absolutely.
All righty, guys. Well, everyone have a great, wonderful weekend. And until next time, have a good one.